now.
And Yosef, we've also realized too,
it works now.
The sharing the screen might be another challenge.
It actually works, Lawrence.
Oh, it's working.
It works now.
Yeah. But everyone can share, right? There is no, everyone can share. Is that right?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we are a little behind schedule, at least according to the slots that I see in the spreadsheet. Let's see, is the Danila Medvedev here?
Yes, I'm here.
That's you. Okay. Nice to meet you. Right. So unless there are any comments, let's jump right in. So I'll try to keep the time. It's 10 minutes, 5 + 5. Yeah. Can start when you're ready.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and I want to tell about how nanotech can be used to deal with the climate, deal with carbon in the atmosphere, and how it's connected to distributed science and why it is needed. So you are all aware that we have a problem with greenhouse gases, especially carbon. And what is interesting about this particular problem is that unlike pretty much every other ecology problem, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is a global one, which can be solved from anywhere. You can be in India or in New Zealand or in Antarctica, and if you have a machine that can take carbon from the atmosphere, it will fix climate everywhere because the air moves around. Which is unlike plastic pollution, unlike pretty much everything else. So what's interesting is that we only need to solve carbon capture once, and then if we can scale it, it can work from anywhere. It's also interesting because we don't necessarily have to deal with individual countries. Like, for example, with lowering emissions, we need to tell everyone to lower their emissions. But with carbon capture, it's enough if one country does it, or if one corporation, or if one distributed organization on the blockchain does it. If we can take enough carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, it doesn't matter who does it, it doesn't matter where it happens. What we have today in the world are many pilot projects, such as the one here, which takes carbon dioxide from the air and makes synthetic fuel, which can be used. But these systems, they are expensive, they are difficult to scale because they're based on the traditional chemical industry. And all those mirrors, they need to have motors, they need to have sensors. So these solutions become expensive, and it's not cost effective to do carbon capture. Nanotechnology is potentially, if we can make it happen, is much more efficient because it operates at the molecular, at the atomic level. We can make the machinery very small scale. So it's essentially like very complex chemistry or very complex biochemistry, except that it's not connected to biology. It's something essentially mechanical, operating on different molecules. And potentially, what's interesting is that we can build this infrastructure, the nano machines that capture carbon, we can build them from captured carbon. So in that sense, we don't need to mine things like lithium, we don't need other rare minerals. We just take carbon out of the atmosphere and build more machines which we can put like in desert or anywhere. And this is the slide with the overall strategy, what I think needs to happen over the next decade or a couple of decades. First, we need to actually make nano machines. We all know about nanotechnology, we all heard the word, but all the projects from the National Nanotechnology Initiative in the United States to all the other projects around the world, they didn't actually create nanomachines. They create many interesting things like nanoparticles, nanofilms, nanowires, all the wonderful materials, but not actually actually nanomachines, not complicated nanotechnology. So what needs to happen is first nanomachines are created, then they're used to build carbon capture nanosystems, that is specialized molecular machines which can take a molecule of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, then strip the oxygen atoms away, put the carbon somewhere in a chain or in a sheet like graphene or in something like a diamond, and then release the oxygen. So then we need to scale that. We need to have the nanomachines replicate themselves like certain molecules can. It's of course much more complicated, but potentially possible. It's just an engineering problem, not a scientific problem. And the reason it's connected to the distributed science is that all the existing organizations in the world which are responsible for nanotechnology, from the United States to China, they are not focused on creating nanomachines for a variety of political and business reasons. If you are interested, you can read a book by Drexler, Radical Abundance, released about 10 years ago, which details how the American nano program was derailed by commercial interests and certain scientists who wanted to control it. But the result is that we actually need a distributed research and innovation system, which is not based in any of the existing countries, because they all have the establishment, people who don't want this kind of nanotechnology to happen. So that would include first the decentralized platform for cataloging the results, creating the incentives and bounties for solving individual problems. And one thing that we have created a VR virtual reality interface for nanosystem design and learning. If you look at my background, so what you can see is actually a screenshot from this VR experience where you can operate with individual molecules, like I can take an atom, I can move it directly. So that's what we have running at NanoLab. And we believe that in this way, we can move a lot of development, a lot of research and development into the virtual space, into the digital space. And it doesn't need actual physical laboratories until a certain stage when we create the project. So that's the concept that we have. And the project at Cardano Project Catalyst is called Universal Chemical Library, which is focused on creating this decentralized system. And I would be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Daniela. Questions?
I have a lot of questions.
Far away.
So I have a very concrete question. Like, doesn't it take a lot of energy to split that atom?
The wonderful thing is that it takes much less energy because you only need an absolute minimum of energy, which is required to break two chemical links, the covalent bonds between O and C. You don't need to move around all this matter like with traditional industrial processes where you have bulk mass and then you just move all those tons of chemicals. So nano is much orders of magnitude more efficient.
Hmm.
But it seems like a incredibly deep science, deep tech project, which to me sounds like very capital intensive. So which part of this, what within your proposal, the current project, which part can you think you can actually achieve towards that goal?
You were right that it was capital intensive, like in 1980s, 1990s, when first machines like scanning tunneling microscopes and other were created. But we've had 30 years of progress, so a lot of this research has actually happened, and we can just use the results. So what is a limiting factor, according to the recent 2 months ago Foresight conference on nanomachines, the limiting factors is software to design the systems. And that's where we focus, and that's where I believe is the highest value that can be created also using this decentralized science. You don't need to actually have the machines until you have a 3D model of the nanomachinery that you want to create. It's like with any factory, you first create in a computer-aided design like AutoCAD, you create a model, and only after that do you move the heavy equipment into the building construction site. So that's the same. It's the same here. I believe that we can create a concept, a functioning virtual model of the machines without any capital investment. And then after that, it will be much easier to get that capital. It can be like $100 million or $1 billion. But if you have 3D models which have been validated digitally in simulations, if you have the community of experts behind it, you go to any science agency anywhere in the world or to a philanthropy and tell them, okay, that's the solution. It works in the digital simulation. Now give us money so that we can build it in the real world.
But just to clarify, what you're trying to achieve within the scope of the project is to build the actual digital model or to build the infrastructure?
No, the platform and the infrastructure so that we can get people who will in turn solve parts of the problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Maybe one more question
Just real quick. So how does it, I'm not clear how it relates to blockchain and Cardano. So how does the blockchain help you with the model and the simulation coming up with the research science?
It's a very good question, and a good answer would take a lot of time, but very simply, what we have is a power grab. There is a community of blockchain enthusiasts who actually took some of the political and economic power from the mainstream, from the establishment, because they created this Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, and other projects. So now there are some resources which are not controlled by the national elites, and they're not controlled by the by the bureaucrats from science anywhere. So if you have a project which cannot be done for some reason within the confines of national science, within like academies of science, you can potentially do it on the distributed science platform, which is also what Project Catalyst is. And this is where we need to move the work so that we can distribute the work, reward people for doing this work, and collect all the information together into a distributed database where every molecule, every nanopart has an ID, it's uploaded, people can connect them into complex systems. And in the past, like in the Manhattan Project, it would happen on paper at Los Alamos. Today, we can potentially do it on the internet using tools such as blockchain and of various information systems.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Danilo. Thank you very much. So we'll move to the next presenter, John Tong. I actually couldn't see in the list of participants. Do we have John with us? Actually, it seems that we don't have John. Actually, is there anybody who is not on the list that wanted to present? Is there anybody? No, okay. Well, we have only 7 people. So, okay, then I have a couple of projects that I'm going to present. Just a second. Right, so the first project that I'm going to present is a project that I'm doing together with a team of volunteers. This is a humanitarian fund based in Switzerland that is called Free Ukraine. Obviously, as you probably know, there's a full-scale war happening in Ukraine right now. In fact, this is the largest military conflict since the Second World War in Europe, on the European continent, and there's a lot of destruction that is happening. So the fund actually exists since 2014 and is focused on helping Ukraine and democracy in Ukraine in various ways. However, what they're doing right now, they're specializing, they have several projects that they're running. The biggest project is supplying ambulances and reinforced vehicles for the Ukrainian state emergency services, and they already supplied several dozens of reinforced vehicles, ambulances, medical equipment for Ukraine. So, however, what we are doing specifically in this project is trying to address the enormous problem of mines. There's an enormous area of Ukraine. In fact, the area is estimated to be about 300,000 square kilometers, which is about 20% of Ukrainian surface that needs demining. And this includes, in particular, enormous areas of agricultural land that are essentially locked because they are inaccessible because they are being mined and shelled. And even if it's not deliberately mined, if a particular area has been shelled, there are a lot of unexploded explosive elements, and so all of this area needs to be demined. There's the area that is agricultural area that is mined. This is estimated to feed about 40 million people. Just to understand the scale, this is a big deal. And these mined areas will result in long-term disruption of global food supplies. This is pretty much in fact now. So what we are trying to do is we have developed a mobile application for the citizens to report any signs of either mining or unexploded ammunition or any explosive threats. So this is a crowdsourced tool for people to collect this information and send it, report it to the authorities, take pictures, take coordinates and send it to the authorities. We actually already launched this application just a few days ago, literally 3 days ago. And this application already, there are about 50,000 downloads on Google Play and Apple Store. And we are actually, yesterday and today, we are #1 on Ukrainian in navigation category, both in iOS, in Apple Store and Google Play. So this is it seems that we have a very good start. It's quite a big deal. We have I have all kind of videos. We've been on the news on all major TV channels in Ukraine. I will not play the whole thing for time. You can see it in the presentation. But basically, the next step for us, we basically developed this mobile application, and we developed information and education platform to basically inform and educate the public about the dangers of explosives. And there are a number of additional components that we put in this proposal for Cardano, which are the web interface for management and planning of operations for demining from the miner's side. There is a mobile application that can be used for deminers to do all of the reporting, and there's a lot of documentation associated with certifying demined areas. So this is all can be streamlined on the mobile application, because right now they work with heaps of paper documents. And finally, we want to deploy a Cardano-based distributed financing platform for people that are interested to help and support. This is going to take many years to demine these areas, and we want people that are willing to help to have a tool that they can fund the demining of a particular field or particular piece of forest or particular part of the city. So these are we finished number 1. We're in the process of working number 2, and we have these 3, 4, and 5, which are the scope of this proposal. So thank you very much. And I think this is a very big deal, and we're asking for this 128K, which can essentially help field millions of people for years to come. Thank you. Any questions?
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
I know a little bit about the project. So I think it's super, super cool that you know, that you're actually, you know, boundarying all the different fields, you know, and making this little, you know, like you can actually, there's a farmer here that has seen something happen and they need help. And, you know, you can put the specifics up there for grabs for somebody to sponsor it, making that connection from, you know, this is a huge impact for somebody that's trying to farm here on the ground, and then making it hugely available for funding from around the world. Because I think, you know, once there's a, you know, another Swiss, you know, NGO, right, wanting to do something, and you have no idea, like, where does the money actually go? And here you can actually see that, you know, then we take one field at a time, just like, you know, you could imagine having this map, you know, seeing like how it spreads out and how some money eventually, you know, it's going to make the whole map go green or whatever. I think that's super, super cool. And, you know, and you already, you know, have a lot of traction. I think that's really, really awesome. Of course, it's a, you know, devastating situation. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Magnus. And I just want to emphasize, just repeating what you just said, is that the whole point is the specificity, and this is where blockchain plays a significant role, is because we can really, it's all red, there's the extensive red areas that are mined, and we can go field by field and find people that want to help to unlock basically this piece of land and give them a certificate essentially that this has been cleared, this has been certified, go through all of this submission of application, allocation of funds, and then somebody goes there, does the demining action, and then certifies the area. This is what blockchain is good at, is running this, you know, trails of information, putting them together, so we can field by field, we will turn all of this area from red to green. Thank you.
I have a question. That may not be an urgent function, but it's interesting how it potentially connects with existing software for smart farm management, where farmers manage like how much fertilizer they need to put in different fields. Like potentially we can see it as a feature in the existing software that you need to put fertilizer here, you need to demine here. So have you thought about this?
Sure, I'm coming from this field. I'm coming from precision agriculture, and I've been developing software platforms for digital farming. And this is partially where we came to this idea. I think that integrating this into the farm management platform will be a little bit of an overkill. This is my opinion. Maybe because this is just hopefully it's one-off. You know, demine a field and you hopefully never think about this again. So we want to build a dedicated system that would be intended specifically for that, to making this happen as quickly as possible. But it's you're absolutely right that this is a very complementary systems. And in fact, we are taking these field boundaries that are automatically generated, that were generated for digital farming, and we are reusing them for demining action. So you're right. This is a very good question.
I have a second question, if that's okay.
Maybe the last one too. Yeah.
Okay.
Please. Yeah. Please.
Yeah. The second question is, Well, first, what's the scale of the work? How do you estimate it? You mentioned 300,000 kilometers of potentially dangerous land. So, like, how many actions, how many trips do those operators, the deminers, have to do? And have you thought about how it can be scaled? So that does it have to be just a marketplace essentially which is flat one level? There are just three types of people: a donor, a deminer, and the farmer. Or do you see that there can be potential for some scaling it up, so that, for example, you work with the Ministry of Agriculture, or you work with the security organizations, or you work with farming companies, so that there is a multi-level organization of this work? Like, in general, your thoughts about this?
Well, we are working with quite a few. There are a lot of stakeholders in this. We are working with Department of Interior of Ukraine. We are working with the State Emergency Services. This is obviously, everything is integrated with the information management system. We are working with multiple private demining action groups. You're right, there are lots of stakeholders. Unfortunately, this is enormous task. This is a task that will take many years and possibly decades to complete. So the bottleneck is you need many people, and right now they are not even doing any agriculture right now, because they are focusing on critical infrastructure. And so it's hardly even started the demining of agricultural fields. So unfortunately, the scale is more than you can fathom. It's just huge. But the urgency is there, and we are just trying to optimize this process as much as possible, to provide them with digital tools as much as we can to start this work going, because either way, whichever way, this work needs to be done. You cannot leave it like that. And so all I can say is it's a huge task, and we are just trying to start doing something so it's can be done at some point in the future. But probably
let's hope
the task force for demining will need to be multiplied by a factor at least 10. And in fact, we have discussing a program right now to recruit the people that are coming from after being wounded from the front, to help them rehabilitate, to employ them for demining. So thank you very much, guys. This is a very big topic, obviously. We'll have to move on. Just give me a second. So I actually I'll try to be fast on the second, because we are a little bit over time. So I have a second presentation here. This is something that Magnus already talked about in a general meeting. This is part of the EarthTrust initiative. So basically, we are a consortium of technologists and innovators and business people and sustainability experts. And this proposal forms part of this effort that was already mentioned by Magnus. And the idea here is that you have all of these boots on the ground projects in regenerative agriculture, in reforestation. There's lots of work that is happening globally. The challenge, however, is to be able to monitor and validate what the impact is. It's something that has been discussed extensively. It's extremely difficult to actually figure out how effective these projects are. Something is happening, people are working, but it's very difficult to somehow figure out what are the implications and what the change actually is, what the impact is, and somehow measure it reliably, which you need to make these projects sustainable in the long term. And so the solution is what we call environmental oracle, which is the idea that you can collect data from multiple sources. Mainly these are satellites and weather stations, and put them together in a packaged regularized, right, assimilated, consolidated data package, right? So you collect all environmental data, you collect satellite imagery, and you put them together in a package. For every piece of land, for every cell of land, you prepare all the necessary data in such a way that would make it accessible and easy to use in various validation and monitoring projects. So in this case, when you put all of this data together, we represent it in this very pretty, we call it eco mandala graphical form, but basically this is just digital data that includes climatic data and spectral information and visual satellite imaging information. So a few things that you need to do along the way to make this possible is that you need to get rid of the clouds. This is a huge challenge for satellite imaging. And we have now, thanks to wonderful advancement in artificial intelligence, we have a system that is able to remove clouds from satellite imaging data. And then the second very important component, we're able to take inexpensive satellite imaging of medium resolution, and we're able to increase the resolution of these images using, again, deep neural networks. So what this all gives us is, again, we put them together in a package, and we can distribute these packages of data with blockchain stamp on them through this environmental oracle for various monitoring and validation projects. Again, every piece of land that you look at, every piece of forest or agricultural land will give you this very, what I think is very beautiful eco mandala that is always different. It's like a blueprint that you can analyze these data types, and you can derive all sorts of information about the change in time. This is actually accumulation of information over a period of 12 years. So after you little bit build intuition, you kind of know how to read these mandalas, and you can say whether this has been a forest and then it was converted to agricultural land, whether the quality of soil improved or degraded, etc. It's kind of very nice data source. And then we put it on what is called the hexagonal hierarchical spatial index. It basically divides the entire surface of the Earth into this hexagonal units. And basically you can generate this information for every hexagonal on the surface of the Earth, which make it a very standardized and very convenient way to process such information. So that's it. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Yeah, Lawrence here. That's phenomenal, guys. That's really, really cool.
Thank you.
So, and huge amount of potential. So, so I love it. So you're basically you're creating this grid around the world. Have you? So obviously the obvious things you guys are thinking of carbon offsets, I guess. But what other thoughts do you guys have on how to incentivize people to be doing the right thing using this, right? And I'm sure you guys have thought about this, but I'm just going to throw my 2 cents out there. But if you basically could have, you know, whether it's native people or even just people that own the forest or even governments, somehow claim each of those spots, and there's obviously some way that that's reconciled. But if you have that type of ownership, and then and remuneration can be through obviously through carbon credits if those things are maintained, or there's other systems as well to fundraising, other options to reward people for maintaining obviously a healthy, we'll call it quadrant or whatever you call each of those hexagon figures. So what's some of your thoughts around that on how to incentivize people and governments and countries or territories or whatever to basically get registered and be rewarded somehow to be doing the right things from a climate perspective? What's your thoughts?
Well, this is actually the exact subject of the EarthTrust initiative, and I'm focusing on this particular very technological part. But people like Scott and Magnus, who maybe Magnus, you want to a little bit elaborate on this, but this is exactly the other parts of this initiative are focusing on, is how to build the structures that will actually convert this data into action. And what we, again, my part is this. This is something, I'm coming from this industry. I've been working in this industry for about 10 years now. And what is very difficult is to monitor and to actually have some, some truth, because to know what factually is happening. I've been involved in a number of projects where large corporations, we've been actually paying enormous amount of money for all kind of restoration, ecological regeneration projects. And on paper, people were doing something, but in reality, I've been involved in this project by a tobacco company that wanted to reforest areas that were cut for tobacco, for the cooling of tobacco. And so they had all of these hundreds of sites where on paper there was this reforestation. But in reality, when we looked at satellite data, it was all like nothing. There was nothing happening there. It was in Malawi, so nobody really can check. People are reporting, but the objective of this is to change that, is to have some factual data that could support and kind of build the trust of various and separate greenwashing from real impactful projects. Magnus, maybe you want to say something about this.
I think one of the important key things here is also that this is a cheap technology, and I think this is the revolution here. It's like you take some very, very cheap satellite images and enhance it with AI and do all this good stuff here and understand what is there, so you can actually scale this technology, because the technology is there. You can buy a satellite and but if you have to have a lot of money to actually understand to actually get good quality pictures of a specific area that is updated. So this is updated every 5 days, and it's and we could potentially do this all over the world almost, right? I think there's something about the poles that is difficult, but we could do it all over the world. And I think the power is to do it all over the world, to have something global that is comparable, right? You can start, like, there's so many money going into doing, rainforest reforestation on the ground, but what is actually being done? And one of the big ones is Vera. Like, they're still using, people that goes out, checks it, and it's still untransparent how they're doing this, right? Just imagine taking all the Vera projects. I've read a lot of these reports. It's just like, they're all different. They're all typed in different forms and they're submitted as PDFs. Just imagine you go out and say, like, this is the truth. Like, this is how it was. And it's not like how it is today. It's like how it was the last 10 years. Like, this forest wasn't here like 2 years ago. Maybe there's something now, but it wasn't there. And just starting like this global kind of like saying, like, this is the global state of health of the earth. It's comparable, right? It might not be 100% correct, but it's comparable.
Actually, this is just a very nice illustration of this. I deliberately put this. This is an example that there is a part of the forest has been deforested, and you need to train the eye on these things a little bit, but you can see how it was forest and then it was suddenly became a seasonal agricultural field. So it's like
because of the red, right? The red and the green, the red and the green. Yeah.
So okay, so here's a suggestion. So I agree with you. Everything you said is bang on. It's awesome. So the question comes back to is how do you incentivize people, governments, communities, to be doing the right thing. They're going to make choices, right? Do they burn it for raising cattle, or do they have a forest or whatever? So has a thought come across around, again, basically using the GPS coordinates you have in each of these things and creating an NFT for that. And so someone would have to either go to that location with the photo, with their camera, with their GPS coordinates, and create the NFT. And so somehow, so that they physically have been there. Obviously, there's things you need to just guard against. But the idea is that there would be ownership of these NFT tokens for each of those squares, right? And then they're somehow incentivized to make sure it comes up green. Exactly. And if it doesn't, then they don't, there could be some rewards that they get by having these NFTs. Could be monetary rewards, could be carbon offsets. And then obviously you could get a bunch of collection of those. But tying that into exactly like NFTs that's one of the things that's really good about, like only one person can have it. It's based on it could be based on a GPS coordinate system or inside one of these grids. And there would only be one person or one organization. And then that's how, and again, the rewarding system either can be through funding or offsets or whatever. But then the people that would have those NFTs that would represent each one of these, and it would only be one, then they could be rewarded and then maybe be incented to do the right thing. Have you guys thought about something like that at all? Or
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And in fact, I had additional proposal on a Commando NFT, and it makes perfect sense. So all I can say, I didn't want to pile too many different proposals, and I want to make them. We have already lots of things, so one at a time or two at a time at least. Okay. So this is definitely a Commando NFT. This is a proposal for, I think, for Fund 10.
Cool. And I totally agree. I think it's a great idea, and I have shared a proposal and where we want to do it in north of Ivory Coast, where it's a forest that needs to be protected. Yeah. And just imagine if you would, divide it into NFTs, all these, and if they, if you can prove, that there's a forest, there's actually carbon credits to be minted just for it standing there to conserve it, right? So you could be like, if you, as a government, you own this forest, of course you can earn more money by logging, selling it. But if you make it transparent that this is happening, right? You just show trustworthy to the whole world that this is happening. Hopefully, and that's why I think the community part is super, super important, because there's so many people that wants to do something, but what can we do, right? And that needs to be solved somehow, like to get the masses to kind of like work together on this.
Guys, that's great. So let me know if you guys have a Discord or something. I am more than happy to help out. Again, when you need a little bit of a prototype, I can just include this programming too. So
thank you so much.
Awesome. 100%.
I'm not a very good host, so I'll try to. We have to move forward. Dan.
Hi guys. Maybe this is a good segue into my proposal. I'm just going to run through it real quick. I hope you can understand me. My voice is leaving me a bit.
All good. I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, Algorithm is the name of the project, and Algorithm has evolved to face the daunting reality that CO2 emissions have greatly hindered the environment from producing O2 naturally as before. And this is evident across the lands, in our water, and in the very air we breathe. Solutions are needed to prevent further collapses of our biospheres. Our proposal foresees the creation of a climate-neutral digital service provider, a search engine front-end as an example, to kickstart a circular economy, marketed and incentivized by the Algorithm network and an impact DApp. The commissions generated through the network would produce oxygen, food, and biomass within a circular microorganism supported system. The impact. There are so many resources dedicated to tech research and development. So why not use these resources in the same way that the ecosystem has sustained the planet for thousands or millions, even millions of years, and invest our energy into evolving a more organic kind of technology, something like a meta-organic technology. And we use the microorganism model to the superfoods and biomasses produced from the facilities. They're produced with minimal energy expenditure, and any surplus or profits are directly distributed back into the purpose of the network. The algorithm functions as a non-profit purpose association that nurtures a network of purpose companies and cooperatives to further the cause. The purpose being to re-establish natural levels of CO2 absorption and O2 production. And now to the DApp itself, driving incentive, an example of the DApp flow. So prosumers can utilize a climate neutral or even positive service provider from the AR network. They can collect impact points. The impact score is linked to the user's DApp account and can be used to purchase offers available there or on partnered webshops. Offers may include giveaway tickets, as well as impact challenges that prosumers, DAOs, or other entities can join in or create themselves. The final phase, or the 3-year vision, entails the beginning of a federated network of climate neutral digital service providers running dApps on bare metal infrastructure. The team is almost complete, and we are currently interviewing developers. If you know of any developers that would like to participate in the process, please do not hesitate to contact. Regarding the biggest risk that we see, an insufficient amount of traffic or a slow adoption of the search engine or the digital service provider that we would create could lead to a deficit where facility costs are not covered. We mitigate this by being configured as a modular system in which any other digital service provider can be integrated with the network and the Impact app. So success is on the horizon. The requested budget from the Fund 9 would allow us to release the DApp Alpha and build out the Purpose Network. Thank you everyone for your time and interest in creating a better world. Any questions?
So just to make sure that I understand it, is it, you said, I didn't get it. I was really trying to listen. I'm not sure. Is it like alg farming connected to some kind of search engine?
Yeah,
product?
so it's let me open this up again. It's in our case an algae farm connected to a digital service provider, and we use the example of a search engine.
Okay.
So yeah, let me check. So, but this is adaptable. This could be any microorganism production facility, fungi, could be. I talked with someone about an aeroponics cannabis farm, for example. It just has to be a climate positive and closed loop system that can be plugged into the algorithm network and use the Impact DApp score generator to show what kind of impact they create and then get the rewards or get the financial profits from the service provider for that.
And the service provider, what other service providers could it be, for example?
For example, it could be, as we said, the search engine. It could be a blog that publishes eco content. It could be other distributed cooperatives that create content and that allow people to browse it for a certain fee. It could be, yeah. any other projects that build on Catalyst also that offer a digital service that needs some kind of energy to be used. And this energy ideally will be created on site of the production facilities.
Cool. Okay.
But the main piece is the impact app, because this is this is the hard piece where you can plug in other service providers or other microorganisms or other facilities.
So would there be like a revenue share? Would it be like a part, like is it
Come again?
maybe is it gonna be like a revenue share? It's like for example, like the search engine, like that's gonna be, let's say the search engine or a blog might be, because the search engine might be hugely consuming a lot of energy, but like they would like say that there would be like, I'm CO2 neutral or positive because I'm getting my energy from this facility, right? Is that correct?
That's one example, yeah. And
Yeah,
we would
okay.
do just a very small front end for the search engine. So obviously the search engine would be like, it's not a complete search engine, but just like a view on the search engine so that you can get people's click data basically. So people, it's like Ecosia. You know Ecosia,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
they're planting trees, but all the profit generated from the search engine, in our case, will not go to planting trees, but to fuel microorganism facilities.
Cool. Now I get it. Ecosia for algae farming,
Exactly.
but with a DApp.
So just another
Right.
question. Yeah, go ahead. Yosef, do you want to ask a question then?
Please, yeah, please.
Okay. So Dan, so could you also be looking at, because you are doing carbon sequestration there, no? Or are you, like, when you actually go back to that slide where you're growing the algae, what happens to the CO2?
So the CO2 is being sequestered by the algae, and O2 is as a product given out. So there is CO2 sequestering, but on a local scale. The idea is that people can take this concept and build an algae farm in their rural environment, so they can get very easily and for a low input, almost no input, food and or clean air to breathe in their area, because those are two things that will be very scarce in the future.
Yeah, but and you also have value in carbon sequestration, right? Like
yes, absolutely. This will be one of the parameters where impact will be measured, but it won't be the only one. Absolutely, you're very right.
But that if you had a mechanism to provide some assurances, unlike kind of the previous presentation where you've got the satellite to see what's going on here, the question is, so if people set up these farms, how do you know what they're doing? How is it audited? But if you can establish that, then then you definitely have even potential just from a carbon credit market perspective.
That's the idea. We're working together with a farm and the university in Italy. Currently, it's just one farm with 1,000 square meters, but this is the pilot farm where we try to find out what kind of data we need to gather, what kind of equipment we need to gather this data. How can we make it relevant in a context of carbon offsetting, of other more meaningful ways of fighting climate change, maybe. This will be a work in progress. For the beginning, it will be CO2 sequestered and O2 produced as a basic parameter set. But obviously, this will expand, and hopefully, it will be possible to use the eco mandala also in a way to enrich it maybe with soil data. That will be much helpful, I think.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for sharing. That's interesting.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks
very
for
much,
listening,
Dan.
guys.
We are very much over time, but please, if anybody has any remarks or on any of the projects, further questions, maybe we have a few minutes to summarize and discuss.
What about you, Lawrence? Do you have any proposals?
I do. It's not related to carbon sequestration or carbon in general. It's if you guys have a few minutes, I can give you a quick spiel of it if you're interested.
Definitely.
Sure, please.
All right. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay, just bear with me. Okay, so desktop. Share. All right. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so I do have a project in Fund 9. It's basically called the Open Source Cardano Lottery, and it's fundraising for green and social good projects on Cardano. So, so the problem is that Cardano green and social good projects need alternative fundraising options, and the Cardano ecosystem needs more high quality open source projects. So I'm tackling kind of both of those problems. The solution is to continue to build out the open source Cardano Lottery for fundraising of green and social good projects. And the lottery uses a novel approach by making it entirely decentralized. It's a trustless model and does not require trusting the Lotto admin to run and operate the lottery. And all code is open source. How it works quickly is there's 3 main actors in the lottery. So the player buys a ticket in ADA. And if they have the winning ticket number, then they get 50% of the jackpot rewards. The sponsor, so this could be, again, so this could be anyone. This could be a social good project. It could be planting trees or any social good project out there. But basically, they would get a percentage of the ticket sales, and then they would also get 50% of the jackpot rewards. So it's helping, obviously, generate funding for these projects. Also, the players get 50%, so there's incentive for them to do that. The Lotto admin would get staking rewards of the amount that's locked into the lottery contract. And these are needed to pay for expenses such as licensing, marketing, legal, and accounting costs. And the lottery smart contract basically splits up half of it, basically has a jackpot and a treasury. And then the purpose of the treasury is to, when the jackpot is won, the treasury replenishes the jackpot so that the lottery can kind of continue to operate and still have some funds even if jackpot is won. And then the milestones, basically, if it gets approved, basically takes about 6 weeks to get to the next stage, which is this MVP release. So about 6 weeks of development and then another 2 weeks of testing. And really where the funding is, it's asking for basically 29,000. And these are the things that need to happen in order to get to this next release. So we already have built kind of the first release version, and but this would get us closer to the mark. Again, it's all open source. So if other people want to take this lottery concept, they can use it as well. And then after this phase, I would actually then reach out to other people and actually try to create a market product for it. But that would require licensing and other stuff. But this is a good base, and if there's interest and approval for this, then I'll continue to work on this. And it's been a great opportunity to work on some Plutus development, and it's kind of a neat concept. And I think globally, if it could actually take off, I think it could be very effective. There's obviously it's on a green, it's Cardano, it's on a green blockchain development, so that's great. And so if it aligns us to social good and green projects, even the better, and can help fundraise, I think, desperately needed funds for. As you can see, there's a multitude of great projects on Cardano, and I think Catalyst will only go so far. So I think there needs to be some other options. And that's basically it.
Cool. Is the way it works the how lottery normally works, like the splitting and okay.
Exactly. So this would just go on a cycle, whether it be every week or 2 weeks. Or be defined by getting to a certain threshold in the jackpot. Exactly. So it'd be a similar format. So you buy, you choose like 6 digits, and then when basically a number is chosen, if someone has that number, then that's great. and then they win it, but otherwise they don't. And it's all using, obviously it's all backed by the blockchain. So you basically, a ticket is actually an NFT that you get. So it guarantees the uniqueness that you actually own what you bought. And that's how you know that when a player actually tries to claim a jackpot reward, they actually have to have the NFT in their wallet in order to claim it. So it captures all those dynamics of how do you make sure someone actually owns what they say they own. So that's where the blockchain is pretty cool for that.
And what about the Lotto algorithm, like drawing the numbers? Like, how is that done?
Yeah. So the first version I had right now is basically it uses the hash and key of when the administrator moves it to the next state. So the players wouldn't necessarily know what the number is in advance, but the Lotto admin could predict it. So the next version, which is this version that I'm requesting the funding for, is the randomness is going to be based on the actual player entropy. So the number of players and the numbers they choose are actually going to help generate the random number. And I've gone to great pains to try to make sure it's, the random, like it can't be fixed, right? It can't be rigged. Yeah. It's actually really hard to do. So, yeah. Right, because you could have an oracle, but then you don't know who the oracle is, and so I'm trying to create a way that is simply, it can't be tampered with. The Lotto admin can't jury rig the system, so you don't need to trust the Lotto admin. He just kind of moves the lottery to its next states, but he can't actually jury rig it and rig the system. So that's what the next iteration is to have it a player-based entropy. So it depends on the players. So basically no one can predict it. Obviously if no one plays, but then there's no jackpot winnings, and there'd be some other criterias. But generally speaking, as you have players play and they choose numbers, there'll be an incentive mechanism to have enough people play in order for us to release the jackpot rewards. And so therefore by doing that creates enough entropy that you wouldn't be able to predict the number.
Yeah. Or at least make sure it's depending on something that is non-controllable by anyone.
Yeah.
Like the players and
Yeah.
And how do you make it like open source? If so you would make the algorithm open source for the lottery as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's the key is I want it open source so everyone can review it and vet it. I want it to be, rock solid, but so that's why I'm created an open source, and I'm looking for feedback and contributions if that's needed as well to make sure it's
an interesting idea would be to instead of making it random, making it completely deterministic but dependent on some, as you say, some entropy. So like once all the parameters are in, anybody can calculate
yes,
the number.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So
exactly.
everybody can verify that there is no tampering, but make it dependent on things that nobody can tamper with.
Correct. And that would be the choosing of these numbers. So each of the players would reveal what their numbers are after the lottery's kind of closed, and then players would reveal their numbers, and that would be your entropy. And to your point, then the number is actually then a calculation based on those
like the hash of all the numbers that all the players have chosen. That
would be something like that. Yeah.
Completely deterministic, but everybody can check, but nobody can control.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah, sure.
Unless there's one player.
Well, exactly. You'd have to have certain incentives. So because you could, and I've thought about that. I don't want to go too much detail, but there are ways to make it so it's not in anyone's interest to basically buy all the tickets or have only one player. Exactly. So, but, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
All right. So just an idea, but obviously, yeah. So definitely as people look at these green projects, funding is an important element, and this could be an option to generate some funds.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we need to wrap up because depending on the time zone, it's quite deep into the night. Thank you, everyone. It was great. We didn't hear anything from Margarita. Margarita, would you like to add anything?
No, I don't have something to add. All the presentations were great, very interesting ideas. Looking forward to vote, and hope everyone is successful in this round.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think that's completes
you.
our session.
Thank you for hosting, and
Thank
have a
you so
great
much
day,
for hosting, yeah.
everyone.
Thank you,
You
and
too.
good luck to everyone.
Goodbye.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.